Hello, I am Wanderer001, and this is a review of Podkicker, a free Android app that can be found in the Google Play Store. I went in search of a podcast playing app, which also has other features which I will get into, mainly because I used to have an old Creative Zen M, a big platter-based MP3 player that met with an unfortunate accident at my night job, shattering the platters and losing all the information that I had on it. But at that time, I was mainly using it for listening to MP3s, which was a pain because I would have to use a desktop program to download the MP3s to offload onto the MP3 player. Now, I could continue to do that with the smartphone here, but I decided I can access the internet on the smartphone. Why would I want to do that? So what I did was I got Podkicker here, which let's start going through. Now, as you will see, because it is a free app, you'll notice that there is a banner ad. What you're looking at is not necessarily the landing page for when you start the app. What it does is it remembers the last tab or item here at the bottom that you were in. In my case, I was in the player actively listening to a podcast before I did some filming. Because Podkicker is a free app, there is a paid app which was totally redesigned. You can go look at it. Similar principle to what's going on here, but like I said, redesigned, ground up, blah, blah, blah. Free apps have ads. One of the problems that I've found with the banner ads here, if you have your data turned off or your Wi-Fi turned off or both turned off, you'll get like a network error page that pops up and you have to navigate away from that before you can start using the program. Not a terrible thing, but it's a minor nuisance. I just figured I'd let you know about that. So like I said, this isn't the landing page, it's the last page I was on. So what I want to do is start with the new, and we'll go back to channels there because that's a little more involved. So what the new is, you have, well, here, actually, let's go to channels. Channels shows all the podcasts that I'm currently subscribed to. You can either do this via a URL that you can get from the particular podcasts, or you can search for the podcast by name in the app itself, which will go right up here. You'll notice there's two icons. This icon here is the refresh icon, so that forces the program to look through and see if there's any new podcasts, which we'll get to in a moment. If we look here, that button is for subscription. So like I said, you can type in the subscription and then subscribe. You can import a podcast or you can find a podcast. Now here we have several different options. I don't use PodMap, so I'm not going to go into that. But what we have here is search. So you can search for a podcast by name. Tech News Today, we search. Here you can see this is an ad. It has ad next to it, lets you know that, which I appreciate. And then here we have Tech News Today. And let me get the keyboard out of there. And a big old subscribe button for the MP3 version. They also have a video version, HD video version, and the list goes on and on. All you have to do is hit the subscribe button, and what that'll do is add it to your list here. Go back. The other item that you have an option to do is recommendations. So what that is, if you have a couple of podcasts listed, you go into recommendations and it's going to say, I'm going to access what you have. And it's going to give you recommendations for other podcasts based on the podcast that you currently have. It's going to say, hey, you're interested in this. Let me show you some other things that people have also had on their phones and found interesting. For the most part, I found it to be fairly accurate with some caveats here and there. At one time, all right, this part's not quite PC. There was a podcast that got recommended to me, which was something like Sexy Nerd Sandra or something like that. And the reason it recommended it to me was because it had nerd in the title, and I have a lot of tech-related podcasts. I haven't had it show up again. I'm not sure why it showed up, but it did, so there we go. Moving on, we're going to go to the new tab. What this is, based on the podcast that you have subscribe to. This will show you any new podcasts as they come out. Here you can see in orange there is a date or a time, and that lets you know, hey, there is a new podcast. Like, as you go further along, you'll notice that they kind of gray themselves out. So the newer ones are a darker orange, and then they slowly progress down to gray about a week ago. You'll also notice that titles that are in gray are something that you've downloaded already. Here you have a white title. That means you haven't downloaded it to your player yet. So we're going to go to the Player tab. Here there are a few more options. You have a list currently of what I have on my smartphone. So you have percentage listened to and player options up here. So you've got your rewind, fast forward, and play. It does have an autoplay. If I touch, it starts playing right away. You'll notice that the play button does turn to a pause button once you're going. The other option is you can go down and click manually to start playing it, which doesn't want to cooperate at the moment, but it's there. One other option is, I will show you, it does play in the background. If we go away from the screen, it is still playing because you can see there is a triangle icon up there, and if we drag down the menu, you can see the particular podcast is playing in the background. We click on that, it'll bring us back to the podcast list. So we're going to go to downloads. What this is just that. It is podcasts that you download. It lists completion, or if it's in your playlist. There are some interesting items here. If we long press, you can delete a podcast from your phone. Go to more options. It lets you know other things that you can do. So you can delete all downloads, delete things that were listened, 95%, 5%, old, export downloads. There's quite a few options there. Likewise, if we go back to the player, I'm going to long press and hold on the first item in my list. We can play this, remove and delete, reset position, clear the list. If you just remove it, it removes it from the player list. If you remove and delete, it removes it from the list as well as from your downloads. Now, one thing I should say, we'll come back to the new, and here we have cord killers. So if I click on it, we have a choice. We can download it, which will download it to the cell phone or wherever you're downloading it to. In this case, my cell phone. You could download it to an SD card if you want. Or you can stream. What that means is you need an active internet connection, either via your data plan or Wi-Fi, and you can just stream it through the cloud. You don't have to download it actively to your phone. So nice features there. You also have right and left toggle buttons, which will bring you to the previous and next item. You can see download is grayed out on this particular item because I've already downloaded it to my smartphone. For a free podcast catcher and player, I like it. I've gone through quite a few when I was initially searching. This is the one that I found and liked enough to stick to, mainly for my tech podcast, so I can stay abreast of what's going on in the world today. All in all, it's a great app if you're looking for something to keep up with podcasts. I know they're not quite as popular as they used to be, but if you're interested, I would highly recommend Podkicker free if you can deal with the minor ads here and there. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the area below.